There we go. All right, good evening. Call to order the Township of Hampton Council agenda meeting for Wednesday, November 1st. We'll start with the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That was my iPad. I don't know what's going on. Roll call, please.
Ms. Blackburn?
Present.
Dr. Doherty?
Present.
Ms. Fritsch?
Present.
Mr. Koenig?
Present.
Dr. Johnson?
Present.
Mr. Speakman?
Present.
All right, we'll start with administration, please.
Good evening, and first item under administration, Madam President, is a proposed ordinance regarding the use of bond interest earnings. A copy of that is in your packet, plus you also received a memo dated October the 30th that gives you a summary of what the thought process is here. If you have any questions, we'll be more than happy to address it. And frankly, too, if you have any questions for Mr. Owen Sr. and Mr. Speakman, all three of us are on board with how to deal with this. Mr. Ron Braun, who's your bond counsel, will be present 2 weeks from today as well, if you have any last-minute questions as well.
Anyone have any questions or concerns? I know my primary concern was taken care of, that we're not locked into just the original three projects, just in case there's additional interest earnings.
Correct.
All right, next item, please.
Okay, item B is presentation of the proposed 2024 township budget on November the 15th. That's just information to let you know we'll be giving it to you the same way we have in the past. You'll have standard worksheets. We will upload it as well into SharePoint, but a lot of times people like hard copies. We also will have a breakdown of current fees versus any proposed increase of fees, which I don't believe, other than the sewer tap-in fees, which we're waiting for engineering to give us a response on. There should be no increase in fees, but we'll still put them out there so you have them.
Okay. And no change to like the swim pool fees this year, correct?
No, there's no proposed changes in fees with regard to building permits or any township parks and recreation program at this time.
That's great.
All right, next
Yeah.
item, please.
The next item is authorization to request an RFP with regard to the 2024 tax and revenue anticipation note. There's one minor error there. We're pleased to tell you that we do not need to borrow $2 million. We only need to borrow 1.5. Little logic there for you. Interest rates are slightly higher than they have been, although our earnings rates would be higher. The problem is, so would our costs. So if we borrow a lesser amount, we of course have a lesser cost. We also will make sure that the RFP is structured in such a way that we can pay it back early at any time when we're prepared to do so.
All right, anyone have any questions?
Okay. Item D is the Depreciation Lands Museum Alarm System Phase 1 purchase through capital improvement budget. JR is present this evening if you have any questions for him. Put simply, this is a capital budget item. Involves the alarm systems at not the Depreciation Lands Museum. And I don't wish to, dampen it in any way or say it's not that important, but if you have anything you want to add, please feel free.
This is the intent is on phase 2 that we would monitor the other buildings by heat, so that's the goal of this phase 1, phase 2.
Right, I did have one question related to that. The amounts in the packet add up to $8,500, but the request is for $10,000. So I was wondering, is there $1,500 that? Where's the other $1,500? Is it a contingency?
It would be a contingency, yeah.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions? All right.
Okay, hearing none. Item E is an extension of, would be my existing agreement for 1 month. There has been a problem that's been pointed out to me, and I have no problem in working through it with Mr. Speakman. The intent here was just to roll over the agreement for 1 month. That's all it was. But however, if you read the agreement as it stands alone, you'd owe me a lot of money.
And a lot of more vacation days than
more
you'll
vacation
actually
days
be
than I'll
here.
actually be working. So I have no problem with sitting down and modifying that to make it more in line with just the 1 month. It does terminate correctly so, but it technically, if I wanted to, which I wouldn't, but if I did, I could say I want this, I want that, I want this. And to Jerry's point, he'd say the agreement says it. So, and that was not the intent. So if it's all right with all of you, we'll make a few modifications based on what the intent is, and then come back and present it again so you can consider on November the 15th.
All right, so aside from those corrections to make all the sections consistent with just a 1-month employment, did anyone have any other questions or concerns? All right, next item, please.
Okay, the next item is a consulting agreement with myself and the township regarding management oversight for the sewage treatment plant construction project. I did author a memo to you making this request. It's dated October the 30th. I think I kind of summed up where my position is with regard to it. The style of that agreement is similar to the styles that have been offered to other township employees. If you're concerned about the styles or questions or whatever it is, certainly I'm more than happy to talk about it. My intent here is just to help the township, so however you want to pursue it.
I have already talked with Chris about 2 changes that I'd like to see to this. One of which is that in section 2, where it talks about the $2,000 a month plus $100 for every hour over 10 hours, to put in a not to exceed an agreed upon amount without prior authorization. And then to modify it so that it is for a year, renewable for either another year or the end of the project, whichever comes first.
So how do we define the end of the project?
Good question.
Well,
Jim, I'd kind of like your insight on this. Is this like a month after everything comes online to make sure there's no bugs in the system?
It's usually 3 months.
3 months?
Yeah, I definitely think that there needs to be an extension from when we are fully online, being that everything is currently under warranty and we are basically operating a brand new system from start to finish. So any extension of that would be certainly helpful in case we have major issues with any of our contractors or any of the vendors that have provided our equipment.
So normally on a project, there's a substantial completion certificate issued and then a final completion. So I would think you get a final completion and the project is done. And the other option is instead of to have like, periods of time referenced, like 1 year and then extending it, just do it like the other agreement and say that it lasts until, we don't need it anymore.
That's fine, whatever you'd like to do.
Can you do like a final completion plus 3 months, or?
I would say until we don't need it anymore. I mean, you'd have to make it sound better than that. But really, the substantial completion, everything should be done. All of the information that they need to provide you should be done, but, you're right. That literally can drag on after there are no contractors visible anywhere on the site. It can drag out.
It can. Usually what happens in a project like that, to Mr. Koenig's comments, you get a certificate, and then what ends up happening is there's a shakeout period. And the last shakeout periods in the plant, the last 2 that I was involved with, is usually 90 days. And then at the end of the 90th day, if everything is operating as designed, then they have to issue the bonds, Jim, for it's either 12 or 18 months. I can't remember what the specs say, in order for compliance for that period of time.
You also wouldn't be putting in 10 hours a month during that period.
I'll be honest with you, I don't believe I will.
Yeah.
It's there, if something would blow up in everybody's face, in my face, or whatever it is, there's a methodology, if you will, but I would hope I'm not going to be doing that. I know I have a minimum of 2 operational meetings I have to go to. The one construction one usually lasts about 2 hours, give or take. And then there's, of course, time here. I don't plan on coming to both meetings a month. I kind of like to just show up for the one on the 4th Wednesday of the month, hand your report, ask you if you have any questions.
So can I ask another question? So
Before you go any further, so my question is, if we're not gonna put like the annual renewal, make it through 2024 and then renew it for 2025, then I suggest that under agreement of term, you put some kind of clause that says, if either party wishes to terminate this agreement for any reason, that they must give, 30 or 60 days notice.
Good point.
So that you've got that flexibility, and that's for us as much as Mr. Lochner. If something comes up in his life and he can't do it anymore, then he also has an out.
Sure, it's no problem.
So.
We do that in other agreements, that's not a
Yeah.
problem.
So when you, or when Kevin left from facilities, there was some period of time where he was available, and there was a similar agreement when a department head leaves. And I know it's been a while since a manager has left.
Just a little while.
You don't actually, I mean, you basically talk about being an owner's rep on a construction project, and there's no real reference in there about being available for the normal thing. Is that included? And if so, what's the timing on that?
Okay. There is, if you go to the second page of the agreement, there are 7 specific tasks.
Yeah.
Item 6 says to assist the municipal manager as needed with resolving questions and/or concerns regarding township operations, personnel grants, budgeting, personnel services, and/or as well as communications, or I'm sorry, community relations. In all sincerity, in a discussion with Mr. Speakman and Dr. Johnson, I would do that for nothing. I'm not going to throw Ryan under a bus, or I'm not going to throw any township staff member under a bus. I've been here for 37 years. I mean, how this municipality moves forward and successfully is important to me. And but to Mr. Speakman's point, he said, Chris, put something there. So if something happens similar to what happened with regard to, and it won't, with regard to the gentleman who was our facilities director before JR was, there's a methodology for the township to function with you in a relationship. I said, okay, I'll put it there. So that's why it's there. If you read the rest of it, it is all project-oriented. I have no intention, and Ryan's back there, so I'll tell him while he's sitting there, even though he already knows. I have no intention of sitting over top of his shoulder. I don't really want to be here from the standpoint of in the room. I like you guys, don't get me wrong.
Tell us how you really feel.
But I don't want to in any way make any of the township staff uncomfortable or Ryan uncomfortable into doing his job. That's not what I'm here to do. I understand, as I said in the memo, this particular project inside out and backwards. I honestly believe that I know more about this project than any person in this room. Jim knows the construction side. Rob knows the finance side. Jerry knows the finance side. I know both sides.
I have a couple more questions.
But that's kind of my intent. My intent is it's there for that purpose. It was a suggestion by the township controller. That's the only part of it that's different from the standpoint of the plan itself.
There's also something in there about the township paying for liability insurance for. Now, I know as a professional, my licensed architect's liability insurance can be a little pricey, and it's based on my being a licensed professional in a construction and design related field. So what kind of liability insurance are we providing for you?
Errors and omissions.
Well, but is it as a design professional? I mean, as a township manager, it's got to be a different job category than an owner's representative on a construction project. And that's the final thing, and this is just a comment. I actually feel that a better option for the township would be to hire you as a consultant for that period of time like we normally do with a department head, and then transition to a professional owner's representative on construction projects. That's my honest opinion. Just because I don't really understand what your liability insurance is for, and it's not your profession.
Okay. First of all, if you take a look at the other department heads and individuals who have consulting agreements with the township, and the two I can think of right off the top of my head is Mr. Corse and Mr. Flannery. That clause is in there verbatim. Okay. I don't have any problem if you want me to get individual insurance, but I reserve the right to bill it back to you.
Well, it occurred to me, I really don't know anything about the kind of insurance. So this is the township has an errors and admission assurance policy that covers everyone that works for us. Is that what it is?
Correct, and yourselves.
All of the department heads.
All the township's employees and yourselves.
So
The
it would
employees,
be,
but clarification, because I was also struck by this too, and surprised to see that that a consultant would be covered by this. I mean, certainly employees are covered by it, certainly board members are covered by it. That's part of the insurance package. We have that at my health center as well. And you know, if it's in the other two department heads' contracts, and this is consistent with that, then I won't argue that point. Shame on me for not noticing before or understanding what this was in those contracts. I guess in the new role that I have in my professional life, I understand this a lot better. And I was surprised to see that we would cover a consultant. Like, I don't cover the lawyer that works for us. I don't cover our auditors that work for our health center. So I understand that then you bill it back, but I'm just saying that I've never seen this in my limited experience, an organization that covers their consultants. That's all.
And if we had a professional owner's rep consultant, they would have their own, I mean, they would absolutely have their own insurance policy.
So I respectfully disagree. I agree with Chris in that he has been here on this project from day one. I have no doubt in my mind that he knows this project better than anybody. I also believe that he's the best interest of the township. We would require him to have E&O insurance. This is the only thing that he is doing. To me, it is only reasonable that we cover that insurance. He is going to be essentially our representative, and it would be a cost to him. I mean, Chris, are you consulting on any other sewer plant?
No, I have no other agreements with anybody else for anything.
And so while I believe that I agree that we are free if we wanted to choose somebody else to do the job, and they might already have their insurance because this is what they do. That's the type of work that they do. We know that that's not what Chris's profession has been and role has been. However, this project, nobody knows better than him. And I feel completely comfortable with him being our owner's representative because he's also working with a lot of people that we employ that, one, trust him, and two, if there is a problem, we're going to know about it. So as far as the cost, that's why the cost isn't an issue with me, because his profession is not of that he would normally have this, so he would only get the insurance because of what we're hiring him to do, and that would be, to me, only right that's a cost, that the cost gets transferred to us. I'm in a profession where a lot of individuals bill for their time, whether it's for mileage, whether it's for you need something, you have to pay for it. I'll get it, but you got to pay for it.
And understanding the way the municipality does the blanket errors and admission insurance, I agree with you.
In addition to that, I think that you may find, is it still Zedric's operation that provides the coverage?
Yeah, that's Hub.
Okay.
Has it a 4 year coverage.
Okay, so I
But they specifically need to
suspect
call
what you
him
will
out.
find, yeah, I think, yeah, that coverage
Right.
for him is just blended into the whole thing, and it won't be.
Right.
Oh,
it
no,
won't be a number.
when an architect does a project, you need to basically attach everyone on the planet.
No, I get that.
To your
I
policy.
get that. I just don't think under this circumstance that that's, and the number, even if there is a specific number, is a real number. You know what I'm saying? So, and that's easy enough to just check with them so that at least they know.
I know because I know for Kevin, the two
Yeah.
Kevins, they did it.
Yeah,
They'll treat it as a rider, that's all.
yeah, right. Different than the premium I have to pay and you have to pay Rock as consultant for clients that, we have a completely independent relationship with. That's a number. This, I don't think is going to be a number, or at least not a big number.
Now, just to add in, I've spent the last 13 years in consulting, and while my company does have the standard insurance, anytime that a client, which is usually the railroads, requires something similar to errors and omission insurance, the client covers the cost.
It's in there. Somewhere it's in there. whether it's in an hourly rate or it's
No,
in-
we are very clearly billing it back as part of the contract.
Just to be safe, is that something we can confirm in 2 weeks' time?
I think it's just a simple call to the carrier.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, and just to be clear, I wasn't really looking at the cost. I was more looking at whether that is standard procedure with a contract. In my experience, like I said, I haven't seen that normally an organization would cover errors and omission for an outside contractor who is not one of their employees.
And just as you don't cover my malpractice insurance, trust me, it's in.
We believe you.
We know Vince.
It's like Ragu or Prego.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Did anyone else have any other questions or concerns before we move on?
Can I just ask one other question that I
course.
felt was, again, kind of outside the norm of what I've seen in contracts for consultants? And that is the request to cover Mr. Lochner's spouse, not that we would pay for it, but to include the spouse on COBRA. I guess I wasn't fully understanding the context of why we would include a spouse's medical insurance in a consulting contract.
I believe we're legally obligated to include dependents. Although you would be the one to
We're
know
not,
that.
I mean, he's an independent consultant. We're not responsible for their insurance other
No,
than
for
what's outside
when
of
somebody
his-
retires, they're eligible for COBRA for,
Right,
I
but that would
believe,
be
up to
separate.
18 months.
Yeah, but that would be separate. That would be part of the employment, not part of a consulting agreement.
I'll be more than happy to share some logic if you'd like.
Yeah, I just,
Okay.
again,
Sure.
just kind of something else that I hadn't seen in a contract before, so
Sure.
was
Well,
curious to know what the context was.
Well, first of all, I think Mr. Tusseri would agree with Dr. Johnson's comment. Legally, you don't have any choice but to provide it to my spouse when I leave employment.
Yes, that's correct,
Okay.
and that I understand.
But that's done two ways. One is voluntarily and other is involuntary. Don't take this wrong. I know all of you. I am not concerned. But if something happens to some of you, and we're a couple months in there, and all of a sudden the township says, we're going to challenge your COBRA. No, you're not. It's in my agreement.
I think to Bethany's point,
And
should that be moved to the other agreement, to the one where we're extending your contract a month rather than in the consulting? Is that
No,
what
but
you're asking?
That's
That-
kind of
that's
what
the-
I'm getting. I mean, like, again, I mean, with the employees that work in my organization, everyone's extended COBRA after they are either, you know, that when they separate from the organization, whatever the circumstances, they're offered COBRA, and that's typical. So I would have assumed that that would be the same situation when Mr. Lochner retires, and then it was just surprising to see reference to it in a consulting contract, which really is kind of, you know, technically separate from the retirement, that's all.
Again,
As long as you have it, it doesn't matter to you.
that's right.
So, yes, that should be as a part of your quote-unquote retirement as opposed to the consulting agreement. That's the way I would think it's more logical.
I understand, but I don't have that as a retirement agreement.
Oh, okay, all right.
I don't technically have a retirement agreement.
Okay.
And
Right,
I-
but.
again, I-
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. When you retire, you are entitled to do not only COBRA for yourself, but for your spouse. Is that correct?
I am. MBS would have to send me a letter saying that's the case, but I also sit on the MBS board, so I know how this works. If the local municipality wishes to challenge the COBRA option, okay, they can do so. I know you can't win.
Why would we?
I know you can't win. But I also know that it'll cost me to beat you. And I don't want to go there. What I'm doing is I'm just closing a hole I know that's out there. If you have a major objection to it, I'll be more than happy to remove it. But I can tell you that the only reason it's there is because I don't want to get into a disagreement with the township over anything after the fact. So it's crystal clear. I mean, but I think and I know Mr. Tusseri does, wishes to go do due diligence, I know Julie knows this too. You have to, by law, to provide it for 18 months.
We do. That is my understanding. And quite frankly, since the agreement says it is at his personal expense, I really just don't see the point in
What does it cost
Deleting
the
it.
township?
Nothing.
Doesn't-
doesn't.
nothing.
Nothing.
I just find it odd to
Yeah.
see that in a consulting contract, to be honest with you.
Would you be more comfortable if it was moved to the contract in item E, the
But
extension
that
of the
contract
existing?
ends. I think
That's
at the
true.
bottom line
That's
is,
true.
it's either we have to create a new contract just to say that, or it seems like a waste of time and money to create another document. That's just my thoughts.
Is that a standard clause
I
in,
don't disagree with that.
is that a standard clause in the previous contracts that we had with the other department heads?
Actually, not only that, but we had a clause with one department head that said we would cover their eye and dental at our expense, and found out very quickly we weren't legally allowed to do it.
That's correct, because they're not an employee and they can't be on your plan.
Well, MBS has a very convoluted definition of what an employee is, unfortunately, and we learned the hard way. So that was never a concern on my side. My concern was just, I've learned over 40 years that the people you deal with today may not be the people you deal with tomorrow. Life happens, folks. I mean, one of you may win the lottery and say, I'm out of here, and all of a sudden that's 1/5 of this agreement. So all I did was close a loophole. That's all I did.
Thank you for the explanation of the context. of
Sure.
Why an unusual clause would be included in your consulting contract.
One thing I do want to point out, it's January 30th, 2025. Was that the intended date, since the rest of it goes through December?
That's a mistake. I'll change it. I'll be more than happy to change it. I'm hung up on my wife's birthday, sorry.
All right. Anyone else have any?
Hers the 16th. She turned 65 on
Okay.
January
You're
the
not
16th.
supposed to tell us
Oh, she
that.
doesn't care. She could care less about that. I mean, what
She's
she
not
cares
here to
what she
say
cares
that.
about is that she still has medical insurance between now and then.
Yes.
That's all she cares about.
And then I just want to offer a point of clarification. It's my understanding that the two most notable stakeholders, Jim and our new township manager, are both in agreement with this consulting arrangement.
I spoke with both of them today. They are in agreement, but feel free, gentlemen.
No, I completely agree. I think it's a huge advantage to the township as a whole to have somebody with the background to help support us throughout this entire process. So there's also a lot of things that Chris had mentioned, the construction aspect of this. I'm very well versed in that, but there's a lot of other aspects too that I know a little bit, but Chris obviously knows a lot, especially when it comes to financing the bonds. There's a lot of behind the scenes things that he's done over the years for this project that he has the know-how behind that's invaluable. And for us to be able to tap that for any reason moving forward, I think is very important. So, my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd echo what Jim said. I mean, I can tell you from just recent professional perspective, we brought on another individual to manage a project. It was a small project. It was only a $4 million project that they had not been through the design of, had no background in the decisions we made in design and why certain things were the case in construction. And it was, that person was in my office quite a bit, and thank God I'm in my current role for 5 years and I knew what I was doing. But walking into a situation where you have a $50 million project and no background on the financing, the design, why decisions were made, I think that would be a very tall ask for me to manage that project in a way that would serve this township well.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anything else before we move on? All right. Public safety, please.
I would defer to Chris for the resolution.
Certainly. Chief Olafich has an agreement with the township that has run its course at the end of this calendar year, and what he would like to do is, of course, stay. If you would allow him to do that, I can let him do that, but he obviously would like your support as well. If you recall, we did an agreement 3 years ago? 2 years ago, with regard to making a minor change in Chief Volakovich's title. We call him the Chief Administrator of Police. We do that so he can serve in a civilian as well as police role. And the values that he is requesting, they're in the new agreement, only represent what his sergeants make. In other words, his four sergeants make that sum of money in 2024. I believe the sergeant's wage is $114,000, like $995, and the contract for the police is set, so we know what it'll be for 25 as well. So all we're doing is matching his salary to that. He's not looking for anything more. He just feels he's very pleased. You can speak for yourself if you'd like. He's very pleased with the current arrangement. He would just like an updated agreement. So
That's
if you-
correct. And I'd very much like to stay employed.
Well, with that contract, I only noticed one thing that I want to draw attention to, which is that it says effective this first day of January 2023. I think that should be
one.
2024.
Oh, I don't know. No, yeah, absolutely sure. That's
Right.
an easy fix.
Anyone have any questions or comments about it? All right, community services then, please.
Good evening. This month, I am requesting endorsement from council for the 2024 and 2025 road resurfacing programs. By doing that, if it is endorsed by council, I will be notifying all the utilities for one, and then at the December meeting, requesting authorization to advertise for bids for the 2024 road program.
Anyone have any questions or concerns?
As always, I'm assuming these roads were evaluated for worse condition now versus the other ones. The reason I ask that is because East Bardoner's on 25, and that one is very bad.
So it was Birchwood.
That's
Yeah.
right. So
No,
Street on there?
we certainly can debate road by road. However, one of the things that we always try and do is recognize not only the time factors, but also the current condition. I would really highly recommend you drive Oakhurst.
Oakhurst
Oh,
is
my
bad.
gosh.
I've had
I really
3
recommend-
residents from Oakhurst reach out and ask about that one.
Yeah, I mean,
I was
the other
wondering.
thing too is East Bardoner will be a chunk project. What I mean by that is, probably won't be able to touch East Bardoner for less than $200,000. So you're gonna tie up a huge chunk of your road program when you do it. We're trying to catch up with some little stuff on the sides first, and then recognize that East Bardoner has to be done. East Bardoner will probably be a reconstruction.
Yes, Oak Hill is pretty bad as well. We
Oh, I
just drove
agree.
that today. I mean, and it's, with the budget that we have, I would love to do so many more roads out there that are in poor condition, and like I said, Birchwood and East Bardoner are really bad, but yes, we're trying to do the best we can to get the roads paved that are really bad.
thank you.
You're welcome.
There will be, and this will be for Susan to take care of in the next couple of years, you're gonna have to revisit the logic behind some of this, because the costs have gotten so high that the $1 million figure is just not gonna do it anymore. Now, if you're willing to stretch out years, fine, but the idea was, can we rotate every 15 years? No way. It's just too expensive.
So when we started, I believe we were doing $500,000 a year on the roads.
Yes.
You're right. You-
Before we came on board.
You were
yes.
good enough to take it to $1 million.
And then we took it to $1 million.
Yeah, I think you're probably gonna have to sit back in the next 24 months and consider probably $1.5 million. Sorry, I mean, it's just the cost of what it is. Or you need to step back and say, okay, well, the rotation can be pushed. You know, we can't do it in 12 to 15 years, maybe we do it in 15 to 18 years, if you think that's something that you're comfortable with.
What about lobbying the state for more money?
The state doesn't give you much more liquid fuels money. They base liquid fuels on a formula off the gas tax. The township will get somewhere between $500,000 and $600,000 a year. We used $300,000 for salt, and we used the balance basically for the road program. And there's a few little things for like electric, for street lights and stuff, but
However, there's currently no means of recouping any road money from electric vehicles. And Tesla is worth more than all of the other American car makers combined.
I wouldn't argue that.
Well, maybe we start thinking about, lobbying our state government to find a way to get some of that money to help with our roads.
I can't disagree, and fortunately, your future municipal manager's in the back of the room, and he heard you say that, and he can lobby to his heart's content. Because I unfortunately won't be able to do that. Although I'll introduce you to Rob McCurry. But no, I wouldn't
He's
disagree.
not going to be there then.
Yeah, he may not be there that long anyway. That's true.
All right, any other questions on the road resurfacing program? All right, Shaycog Fall Commodities, please.
For the Shaycog Fall Commodities, I have reviewed all of the bids that were received with our foreman, and really there were only 3, the calcium chlorides, that they would consider if we need to purchase it through the commodities, the COG. We'll go to them, but the company that we order the calcium right now, it's basically the same amount of money. So we would just like to have the contracts just in case.
Any questions? All right, environmental services, please.
Jim, I'll be more than happy to take it.
Please, thank you.
I am not going to beg engineering for change orders. They know that they were supposed to have them for this meeting. They don't have them. We'll see you
Yeah.
next month.
I know that they are working on them. Much of it is with the contractor getting information back to be able to finalize everything. So
I know, and-
I know that they are underway.
And I know 2 of them are credits, although they're small credits, but
Well, normally they start with a number. Do we know that number?
nope. I don't know the number. They haven't told me it yet.
The proposed change order number?
There's a few reductions, but I don't know what that shook out to be. So
They have not presented them to us or to myself yet. And not to bring up a bad situation, but the first change order, which was significant, the first time they brought it up to myself was 2.2 million. We paid 1.6. They're going to go through them one by one, and Rob knows it. They're just going to have to present them to me, and when they present them to me, I'll be more than happy to tell you what they are step by step and make recommendations one by one. There's 5 that I'm aware of, and he told me he'd have them. He doesn't have them, so it's as simple as that. We'll see you next month. You're not going to get them on the 14th and be expected. No, that's not happening. They can wait. They've waited this long. They know. Jim knows my feeling on this. Bills come once a month to me on the day of construction. I don't want to hear any more crap where they send them to our finance office and I don't know about it. You know, so, and change orders are the same way. You know, there's going to have to be some level of understanding, and they know what it is. Amelia knows what it is. Calista knows what it is. So, hey, you know, the bottom line is when they decide to give them to us for review, we will give them to you for consideration.
All
We're not
right.
going to let you blindly walk into something. That's just not right.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Zoning and planning.
Okay, I have no items this month. I do have a quick update, though. I spoke with Bob Crawford at Paramount today just to get a quick update on the status at the former Chung property. They are just about finished with removing the furnishings from the upper level, and then they will have the asbestos abatement contractors in probably in about a week. So they're moving forward on that.
All right, good to hear some progress on that. Thank you.
Yep.
Other business then.
Just a couple of items. The 2 on the agenda are pretty straightforward. We hope to see you, of course, for Light Up Night like we always do. And we do expect that we'll have a pretty good crowd and fireworks display after at the end, as we always do. The Santa Tour, we started that a couple of years ago. The fire departments do that. We drive around the community. We're getting better and better at that every year and telling the communities where we're going. We'll take care of it the same way. If you have any questions on those, I'll be more than happy to answer them. And if not, I have 2 other quick items. The first one, I'm going to pass this around if I could. This is a copy of the plaque that is to be done for Martha Hunkley with regard to the community park playground. I apologize. This was supposed to be taken care of months ago. Unfortunately, it kind of fell through the cracks with Mr. Flannery. It's pretty straightforward. It's pretty simple. It is a bronze plaque. It is 10 by 14, so it will be noticeable. We would bolt it literally onto the playground itself. As Mr. Doherty has been kind enough to help, or Dr. Doherty has been kind enough to help us with, we've talked to the Hunkley family, they don't believe it would be a smart move to have Martha come here and go through the process. So what I'd like you to do is go through dedicating it in 2 weeks. We may actually have a copy of the actual plaque if it's done in time. If not, then we'll certainly, once we have it, we'll make arrangements with the Huntley family to go over it with them, and then we'll have it installed accordingly. But for those of you who don't know, and she was instrumental in working with the Hampton Community Association to get the playground that's in the community park done. So it's always been kind of her thing, and I will get you a picture of it. Hang in there. Okay. And then the last thing is there's a meeting tomorrow that I have with Representative McCurry's office. Dr. Johnson was nice enough to be part of the first one. I'm giving her a break on the second one. She has her real life to worry about. We are within an eyelash of having to put on the SPC tip for the 24 calendar year. That project's the #1 project in the township's implementable comprehensive plan. Now, I want to make sure you guys all understand what that means in English, okay? It means that the Wildwood Road intersection will finally get done. It means you're going to ante up $2 million. It will have to either be by property donations, engineering, reimbursement, values. In other words, if we do the preliminary engineering, they say how much did you spend, and then they credit that. Or simply as you stroke them a check. But they are not going to let us off the hook without us participating in it, which I find totally ironic because we don't own any of the roads, but we own the residents who are really fed up with the intersection. So that's their position. Once it gets on the tip, and I know Ryan knows this because he's been around the town a little bit, you don't get it off. In other words, this is your chance. If you want to see it done in your lifetime, once it goes on the tip, do not back out.
What does that stand for, the tip?
Transportation Improvements Program.
Okay, thanks.
All transportation improvements done through District 11 come through SPC. In other words, PennDOT just doesn't do them. They do maintenance like paving, Route 8, that kind of thing. But if you want to redo an intersection or you want to do things, it has to end up on the tip. As Carolyn got a chance to see, there's just a few people you have to convince of this, like about 15. And we did a really good job in the first meeting, and I don't think we're going to have any problems tomorrow. Actually, I have a meeting at noon with engineering, and then I have a meeting with McCurry's office at 3 o'clock. A state legislator has to carry it. He is willing to carry it. And by the way, he has talked with Representative Venkat's office as well. Both of them are more than willing to do what they need to do to get it across the finish line. If it comes to pass in 2026, give or take, you would do the project. And you want to try and do it in conjunction with the first responder station because it's critical that it be done. I don't want to give you a false impression. I am so glad I won't be municipal manager. Oh, the residents are going to be so bad out of shape.
Everyone wants it done, but nobody's going to want to live through it.
Oh, it's going to be terrible. It'll be totally terrible. It's going to be unbelievably inconvenient. There's just no other way to do it. So the best thing I can suggest you do is just keep telling everybody it's going to happen. It's kind of like the Wildwood Road Bridge. You want it done? This is what has to happen. It involves widening. It involves relocations of ramps. It's going to be so much fun.
But it's so good when it's over.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, it's certainly going to put a lot more gray hair on Susan's head. I can tell you that right now.
You'll never see it.
But yeah, but it is what it is. But I feel very confident. The tip meeting is October of 24. I expect it'll be on.
Okay.
It'll be listed and on there. So congratulations, I think. Have a good time with it. Hey, it's only money.
It's more than budget does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a ton more than that. And and actually, if you can loop it into the station, that's the key. Because you can do one borrow and you don't have to worry about it. And just one last thing with regard to that, you're going to start seeing newspaper articles about the fire departments. Their merger work, thanks to Vince's office and Michael, is pretty much done. I think all you're doing is the filing with the AG, and that's the end of it.
Correct.
So on January the 1st, there will be only one
Oh my gosh.
volunteer fire department.
Okay.
They're gonna still stay in the stations until you build a new one. But, the only thing left to do with them is to negotiate the final outcome of their current facilities. And they know my position. We own them all. And, well, hey, look, if we're building you a new station, then, we get the old ones. But you'll have to finalize those negotiations.
All right, anything else?
No, thank you, unless you have questions.
Any
was just
questions?
I was just, not on this, I was just going to extend my personal thanks to the police department as well as Dr. Rebecca Cunningham over at the school district for the ALICE training on Sunday. It was the first time I had attended, and it was absolutely beneficial. I learned a lot and took it back to my leadership team at the health center today, and just really appreciate that the department puts that on for the community. And it's a nice collaboration between the school district and the police department.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'll pass it on to Rebecca.
All right, anyone else before we adjourn for this evening? All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight.
Okey-dokey.